guys, it's Jen again. In this video, we're going to look at how to point tiny insects. I realized after I filmed this that I didn't actually specify what counts as tiny enough to point. Anything smaller than a mosquito is something that you will want to point. So if that's the info you're looking for, then continue watching this video. All right, so this video is to show you guys how to point an insect. What is pointing? So these little things right here are points. You can see these are all really uniform in size because they were cut out with a punch. So you can make your own, but we can also provide some to you that were cut with a punch so that all of your points look very neat and uniform. So what do we need? First of all, what do we use pointing for? Pointing is used when you have an insect that is too tiny for a pin. So my specimen today, if we can even see him, is a tiny little ant. You can see this is actually quite a small pin, but the pin is still much too large for this ant. There are extremely thin, small pins that you probably could use to pin this ant, but I don't recommend that you use the pins that are that small, mainly because they will easily bend when you try to put them into foam, or some storage cases for insects have harder surfaces to put pins into even than this foam, and they easily bend. Once a pin is in an insect and the insect is dry, there's no changing the pin, so it's better to just not use those to begin with. Okay, so what do we need in order to pin or to point an insect? Well, of course, we need the points. You need some pins. You may want some toothpicks, although the head of a pin or the point of a pin can also serve the purpose of what I'm going to use these toothpicks for. And this is actually white school glue. So it's really important that you use white school glue and not something like super glue, because white school glue is water soluble, which means that if you glue your insect to your point incorrectly, you can remove it with water. Okay, if you use super glue, you can't remove it afterwards. This also goes for gluing body parts back onto insects. Not highly recommended, but you can do it. But whenever you're going to glue a body part onto an insect, it should always be with white school glue. Okay, so let's gather our supplies and then I'll show you how we point an insect. All right, so now we're ready to point our insect. So you can see that I have the point already on the pin here. The pin goes through the wide end of the point, and the point should actually be quite high up on the pin, about like this. You always want to make sure the point is on the pin before you try to put the insect on the point. It's much more difficult if you do it the other way around, so this is the practice you want to get into. Okay, so we're going to take our toothpick or our pin, whatever we're using to actually point, to put the glue on the point. And we're just going to take the tiniest little bit of white school glue, just a dab on the end. And once you've done that, you just dab a tiny bit onto your point here. Okay, you don't want an excessive amount, and we're doing this at the very end of the point, out at the pointy end. Now this is a little bit technically challenging. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can touch your toothpick or pin with the glue on it to your insect and place it gently right on the end of your point. So the way this is oriented, we have the insect ventral side down, the head is here, the abdomen is back here. The right side of the insect is closest to the pin. This is how you want to orient all of the insects that you point. And again, I just want to stress that you want your insect very far out on the end of the point. You don't want to try and put it in here or anything like that, because If you do, then you can't examine it as easily, so right at the very end. Another alternative to pointing insects is placing them in ethanol. It's kind of up to your own discretion what you want to do. Although placing insects in ethanol can start to take up a lot of space in your collection, as each insect should be in its own vial unless they're the same species collected at the same time and location. And I guess as a last point, you should never place moths in ethanol because this will remove all the scales from the wings. All right, so that is how to point an insect.